6 who has happened to be going to Gaza or Namagunga, that one will get the government sponsorship.
Yes.
That girl will be empowered further after I have empowered her with my position as a UN official.
Right.
But that girl who's struggling in a district like Kanungu or Kayunga or deep in Kapchorwa will never qualify for the government sponsorship. So you have to look at inequalities of different kinds and see how to bridge them.
How do you overcome that, for instance?
For example, the government sponsorship is public funds. It should be given on a quota basis.
It should be given on a quota basis?
Yes, and it should be affirmative action for the poorest, weakest schools and districts, not given evenly for the richer districts. I wouldn't mind voting that say Mbarara doesn't get any government sponsorship, but a district like Karamoja's districts,
right,
or Katakwi girls get the government sponsorship, and Kampala and Mbarara, and you can find a weightage of income, for example. You can find a criteria for assessing which districts are the most
disadvantaged,
most unequal, and then give those the lift up to help them come through the education system.
All right, Honorable Senator, that's a very interesting perspective there. I hope the people who matter are listening. One of them is right here, Honorable Senator, through UOPA. How can some of these things be addressed, this and other broader issues?
UOPA is an association of women parliamentarians, and I remember at the beginning of this discussion, you asked a question of how can women across the political divide overcome their political differences and work together to address some of the challenges faced by women. So one of the ways through which we are overcoming the political differences is through WOPA, because regardless of our political affiliation, the membership of WOPA is open to all women members of parliament, and we usually touch a broad spectrum of issues, particularly issues like laws that affect women. Most of the laws Patricia has been talking about have been brought to parliament. Some of them are private members, bills which were sponsored by members of parliament who are not ministers.
Domestic violence, FGM,
yes.
trafficking.
And so we identify issues, challenges that affect women, and then regardless of what our political parties say, we get a common voice and push through these issues. For example, we have so many times talked about issues of maternal mortality. You may find that the chairperson is from the NRM, the vice chairperson is from FDC or UPC. So our agenda is broad as WOPA, but it's mainly handles issues which come up, which affect women, and I think we have really tried our level best to push through the women's agenda, and we've worked with civil society organizations to, as members of parliament, we don't have all the time to make the research, but through our networking,
you link up with them. They give you the research.
They give us the research. They help us to develop the arguments. They do the advocacy, and because of this, we have been able to see through many bills in parliament, and also to push for issues that affect women.
Okay, I'd like us to hear, sorry to cut you short, I'd like us to hear from our listeners. This is Spectrum. We're looking at the International Women's Day. It's 100 years worldwide. Uganda's movement is much younger than that. You can call in now. Our telephone numbers 0414 348 111, 0312 260 390, 0791 909 909. I'll ask you to be straight to the point. Tell us your name first, though. Spectrum, hello? Yes?
Good evening. I'm Charles Kasoza, and I'm calling from Nansana. Thank you for hosting the three people, but in the first place, there are too many for such a big discussion. That's why there won't be a lot of time to discuss the issues. But over the subject that you brought of maternal mortality, my problem is that the biggest enemy for their lives are women. Every time I see a woman who is pregnant, I ask myself, was this woman ready for this? Did she take the right decision? And in most cases, women get pregnant, which causes their death when they are not ready for it, but when they just want to satisfy a man. And that hurts me so much. On the point of distributing the positions for government sponsorship, Honorable Winnie, you may give even a quota to a district like in Karamoja, and there are no people to take that quota. I think the issue should be taking the resources to the lower ends. For instance, if women parliamentarians took the effort to identify one village, Honorable Namabidde, identify one village in Malangala and make it a best practice from the grassroots. A village, not even a Muluka, a village. Make it a best practice for people to look on. And we see that girls from the lower end can grow up into responsible women. Instead of looking at the bigger picture, we need to start from somewhere. Lastly, if only countries took priorities right, we wouldn't be spending money like we have spent in the previous elections where so many people are not satisfied. But put it into issues like protecting women's health. Doing the things that matter can make people even sustain their lives without handouts. Thank you very much.
We'll take just one caller because of the time. Spectrum, hello? All right, let's get the responses. Namabidde, your name was mentioned. Would you like to respond to?
Thank you very much, Mr. Kasozi. You made a comment that women are the biggest problem to themselves. And you are citing issues like they get pregnant when they should not get pregnant. I think this centers around the whole issue of women empowerment, because as long as women have no control over themselves, then they'll think that maybe the only thing I can do is to produce children for the man, or to get married. Some women look for marriage, not because they are really ready for marriage, but because society thinks that a woman is worth when she's married. It's
a theme of identity and security.
So it all goes back to how do we empower our women, and one of the ways through which you can empower women is by ensuring that our girls get educated. Not only girls, but even boys. Girls and boys get education, then the girls stay longer in school. When they stay longer in schools, they will take long to get pregnant, or by the time they begin getting babies, they will be able to look after their own babies. They will be able to have jobs. They will have an income, and they will be able to take decisions over their own bodies. So it's a whole big issue which we have to deal with.
Right.
May I come in there?
Yes, Honorable Byanyima.
More than half of all the women in Uganda who have had children have children before the age of 18.
More than half?
Yes.
Go on.
Before the age of 18.
Right.
That tells you that many times these women that he's talking about are actually children. And they don't have much choice about being pregnant or not being pregnant. It is actually that fact that girls have little decision-making power over their bodies that they get pregnant. They don't sit there and make a bad choice. No, a choice is imposed on them for different reasons, whether it's early marriage, whether she's a victim of an older man who should be protecting her, whether she has no livelihood and must go with a man to survive, all kinds of reasons, but it is not a choice that's made in freedom. So that's important to note, and therefore that's why we struggle for empowerment of girls and empowerment of women, so that they are able to make their own free choices about themselves. Secondly, I really agree with this speaker that it's important to give empowerment to a child when they are very young. That is the best point. But nothing is in what he has said is not in conflict with what I said. You can give empowerment a lift up at every level. And I think that is what I recommend. You need to give affirmative action to little girls in the most rural, most deprived districts, you need to give affirmative action to adolescent girls who have struggled through poorer schools and have some average grades and could go to the university and make a successful student and get a degree. They too need a lift up. There's no conflict. We need to, my point is that we need to look at different axes of inequality and give a lift up to the most deprived, most vulnerable. Not just say we are helping girls and you end up helping those girls who are most advantaged. That's my point.
Patricia.
I wanted to say a bit about Chelsea's comment on resources going to the village level. I think I do agree with him. Resources need, at the end of the day, to trickle down to the lowest level. And if we were to look, for example, at the health sector allocation for the last financial year, first of all, to say that there was a reduction from 737 billion shillings in financial year 2009-10 to about 636 in the last financial year.
Yeah, it fell from about 10% to 9%. Actually.
Exactly. So we are seeing a big problem in the health sector, and yet we are seeing a reduction in the resources.
Right.
And we are also seeing that we are not yet at the level to which we committed, the 15% Abuja Declaration. So this is a contradiction. But to take it further, to look at what actually goes to the lower levels. District referrals, for example, in the last financial year, we are only getting 46 billion of the 636. So I think we need to look at the prioritization once again and see where there is most need and allocate more resources there. Yeah.
Well, we have to end here. I must thank our guest, Honorable Winnie Byanyima, Director for Gender and Development at the UNDP, the United Nations Development Program in New York. Thank you for taking time to come to Spectrum tonight.
Thank you too for inviting me.
We also had Miss Patricia Babiiha, Executive Director of FOWODE. FOWODE is the Forum for Women in Democracy. Thank you for coming over tonight, Patricia.
Thank you too.
Honorable Sylvia Namabidde, Mityana District Woman MP, also member of the Uganda Women's Parliamentary Association. Thank you for coming in tonight.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for tuning in. I've been your host, Edmond Kizito. Spectrum will be back tomorrow. Right now you can hear the news in English, followed by Soul Train. Stay tuned.
The art of crafting a masterpiece.
We are proud to offer you Nile Gold